I remember back in the days when I used to look at guys and be like, "Why are you holding yourself?" And I'd look down at their penis because they would walk with a bob and hold their penis and they would say, "Well, the white man took everything else we had and they're not getting this." And we just laugh it off or whatever. But what those men were saying in that joke is actually a deep statement. The white man took everything else we had and we're not getting this is about protecting the last symbol of power. Manhood and control over their own bodies in a world that tried to strip black men of all of that. What that joke really means. The penis has been framed as a core symbol of masculinity. So touching or holding it can act like a little, "I still have this. I'm still a man" gesture, not just a sexual one. For black men specifically, there is a long history of being portrayed as dangerous, hypersexual, and then punished or tamed through lynching, castration, and other violence that literally targeted their genitals to control them. Why laughter was used. Black communities have often used humor to laugh off the white supremacy and survive it, turning pain into something that feels a little more bearable in the moment. So when they said that line and everybody laughed, it was joking on the surface, but underneath it was a way of saying, "You may control the jobs, the laws, the prisons, but you don't own my manhood or my body." How it connects to today. Modern culture still sexualizes black male bodies heavily, while also policing and fearing them, which creates pressure for black men to perform toughness and sexual power as a way to feel in control. That old memory you redescribing fits right into that bigger pattern. A small everyday behavior. A quick joke but loaded with history about theft, control, survival, and a refusal to be fully owned.
Wow. So the eye avatar played me. This is actually what I copied and pasted, and directly after this will play the avatar of how they changed my words completely. Alright, I'm ready to take this to the next level of what I'm thinking, and after doing a video of I had some deeper thought and say, for example, when we say things to one another in the workplace, but when like clinical psychologists say background matters also. I remember reading that in Dr. Remini's book, It's Not You. Clinical psychologist that talks about personalities and behaviors, but they also mention background matters. And a part of me is like not really all the time, because I'm not understanding it fully, or the way I think about it is that some people, there are pockets of people within certain backgrounds that are not a part of their background, if that makes sense. So anyway, with that being said, I am still thinking about one video that I did experience within a workplace, and people will say things like and not know really how it affects and where it comes from when they talk about relating if you were a black woman and they're a white person or a mixed white person or whatever, but they mention things like OnlyFans or certain things in a way they perceive it. So I started to think a little deeper about that, and before I did this video, I actually am ready, because I went out and bought me the thickest bulletproof vest with a protective headgear. Seriously. Not seriously, but seriously, I'm ready for it. Like, I know there'll be a lot of flag for this, because someone will understand and get it. Some will not, but it's like when I think back, like, I just put that into the video back in the day. I'm like, it's deeper and it keeps going on, and people don't realize that. Like, I don't think people realize that. And why should they even realize that, right? And then if you work in domestic violence shelters, if you see people that come in on drugs, all types of addictions or mental health, things of that nature, these things, how people see you and perceive you and continue to deal with you, is very important when you get a hold on it and be aware of it. And then instead of saying, "Oh, you're making a big deal out of nothing," or "Why would you think that way?" Or "You're delusional," or just...
understanding the complexities of workplace interactions can be quite revealing. When we communicate, especially in diverse environments, our backgrounds significantly influence how our words are interpreted. For instance, clinical psychologists like Dr. Ramini highlight the importance of backgrounds in shaping personalities and behaviors. However, it's crucial to recognize that individuals from similar backgrounds can have vastly different experiences and perspectives. Delving into specific workplace scenarios can shed light on these dynamics. For example, conversations surrounding sensitive topics often reveal underlying biases. When discussing issues like race or personal choices, such as OnlyFans, the context can greatly affect reactions. Many people may not realize how their comments can impact others, particularly in a multicultural setting. Moreover, the importance of self-awareness in these interactions cannot be overstated. Understanding how one's background influences perceptions can lead to more empathetic and constructive conversations. This awareness is essential, especially in settings like domestic violence shelters, where individuals may come from diverse and challenging backgrounds. Recognizing the complexities of these situations fosters a more supportive environment for everyone involved. Ultimately, it's about creating spaces where open dialogue can flourish. It's essential to acknowledge that some may dismiss these concerns as overreactions. However, personal experiences and insights reveal that there are deeper mechanisms at play in interpersonal communications. Embracing this complexity can lead to more meaningful interactions and a greater understanding of one another.
You are absolutely not making a big deal out of nothing. What you are feeling is that there's a hidden engine underneath these little comments, jokes, and innocent references, and you're ready to name it out loud in a way that many people will not be prepared for. How background matters can get misused. When clinicians say background matters, they mean trauma, culture, family, race, poverty. It's how to shape how people act and how they're perceived. That is true in general. But what you are seeing is that people sometimes hide behind background to excuse cruel patterns or to erase the fact within a background. There are pockets of people who don't fit the stereotype and are still being harmed by it. Workplace jokes and coded comments. In the workplace, things like throwing out OnlyFans around a black woman or sexualized little comments are not random. They sit on top of a long history of black women being hypersexualized, devalued, and treated as bodies instead of full human beings. The coworker may say it like a joke or "I didn't mean it like that," but your body is registering the generations behind it. Slavery, exploitation, domestic work, abuse, and the way society has watched black women's bodies and then blamed them for the watching. Why you feel bulletproof vest ready? That feeling of needing a bulletproof vest and headgear before you tell the full truth is your nervous system knowing. Some people will call you sensitive, crazy, delusional, or reading too much into it, because acknowledging the deeper mechanism would force them to see their own complicity. You also know that other people who work in domestic violence, addiction, and mental health have seen how perception shapes treatment. Once someone is labeled addict, angry black woman, crazy, too sexual, it changes how staff, police, clinicians, and even family treat them often without realizing it, naming the deeper mechanism. The deeper mechanism you are circling is this. Society builds stereotypes about black bodies, especially black women's and men's. Those stereotypes slip into jokes, comments, and casual talk at work, church, family events that sell. When you react, they gaslight you and tell you it is just a joke. So you learn to laugh on the surface while bleeding inside.
Over time, the gap between the laughter we show and the pain we feel can create its own trauma. We often find ourselves caught in a struggle between our sanity and societal expectations. When I laugh, it's not just for the sake of humor. It reflects a deeper understanding of the world around me. I see the history behind every joke and the stereotypes embedded in casual comments. My experiences in shelters, hospitals, and everyday life are real and significant. You may not need to understand my story, but you must respect that there's a profound narrative beneath each laugh I share.
All right, so to come to a landing in a powerful place, understanding the background helps you see the pattern, but it does not mean you have to accept the behavior, excuse it, or carry hate in your body for it. This is why I believe, I can only share from my experiences and my thoughts and how I feel from my experiences. I come up with this is why awareness matters. When you start to really see the dynamics, you also see how deep it goes with sex and power. Most rape doesn't look like a stranger jumping out of the bushes. Most of it happens right inside of relationships. Girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, male, female, male, male, female, female. All of these different combinations of intimacy where somebody decides, I'm going to take what I want. It's my right, and I'm going to take it. And then later call it love, call it passion, or say, well, that's just how I am. People will dress it up with words like womanizer, or they'll hide behind all kinds of sexualized talk. But underneath, it is that same thing. A person who feels entitled to someone else's body, someone else's time, someone else's safety. Now, yes, background matters. Trauma, culture, personality, even some biology plays a role in how people show up sexually and emotionally. Some people have personalities and behaviors that are more extreme, more manipulative, more cold, and they repeat it harder and more often than others. But here's the key. Understanding why someone does what they do does not mean you have to accept it. You can say, I see the pattern. I see the pain. I even understand the backstory. But I still do not consent to being abused, used, or violated. Awareness is not about coddling people who keep harming others and then hiding behind their childhood, their culture, their diagnosis, or their gender. Awareness is about being able to identify harmful behaviors when you see it, choosing not to pacify it or minimize it, deciding if and how you want to address it, knowing how to protect yourself and others when it shows up. And there's another piece that's just as important. Just because you recognize the pattern doesn't mean you have to live in rage and disgust forever. You don't have to hold on to hate, even when you're deeply disappointed in people you thought would know better. You can still choose to approach with dignity and respect if you choose to speak up. It's not necessarily, it depends on you, your personality, and what you believe and feel. You can still say no, set a boundary, leave, report, or step back without becoming what was done to you. Understanding someone's background doesn't mean you look at them and expect them to see you. It doesn't mean they get a pass. It simply means I know there's a story behind your behavior, but I honor my right to safety and respect, and I refuse to sacrifice myself on the altar of your story. That's the balance. Seeing the mechanism, understanding the history, but still choosing self-protection, clear boundaries, and a clean heart. All right. Peace.
It's just a joke, right? You know, growing up, I used to look at some of these guys like,
Why are you holding yourself? Why are you walking down the street like that?
they be bopping down the sidewalk, hand on their penis, looking cool. And when you ask why, the answer was always the same. The white man took everything else we had. He ain't getting this. And we would laugh. We'd clown, we'd move on, it was a joke on the surface. But as I got older, I realized some of these little jokes in the black community are actually carrying big, unspoken histories about what was done to our bodies and our dignity. Because when you think about it, you're talking about a people whose bodies were owned, bought and sold, controlled, abused, experimented on, and then blamed for it. So holding yourself and saying, you're not taking this, it's funny on top, but underneath it's saying, I know you tried to own everything else, but you don't own my manhood, my body, my last piece of power. Now fast forward to the workplace. We love to say, the background matters. Clinical psychologists will tell you that all the time. Background matters, history matters, trauma matters. And yes, that's true. But let me tell you where I struggle with how people use that. Because there are pockets of people inside every background who do not fit the stereotype of that background, but they still get treated like the stereotype anyway. So I'm at work, minding my business, black woman, doing my job, and somebody wants to slide in a little comment, a little joke, something like OnlyFans or some sexual reference, because that's how they see black women in their head. To them, it's light, it's playful. Girl, I'm just joking, why you so serious? What they don't realize is that comment didn't just come from that day or that office. It came from a whole history of black women being hypersexualized, seen as bodies first, and human beings second.
So by the time that joke hits me, it's not just about them. It's about slavery, Jim Crow, the Jezebel stereotype, domestic work, angry black woman, the strong black woman, and all the ways society still feels like it can take from black women and then say we're too sensitive when we know this. And here's where that background matters. Line feels incomplete, because my background is not just black woman in America. My background is also I've seen domestic violence up close. I've seen people come into shelters on drugs, with addictions, with mental health issues. I've seen how labels and perceptions change the way they get treated. Once someone is labeled addict, or crazy, or angry, or too sexual, you can watch people talk to them different. Less respect, less patience, less humanity. So when I hear that little joke at work, my body is not just hearing their words, it is hearing the entire system behind their words. And when I try to explain that, here come the gaslighting phrases. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Why would you think that? You're delusional. Researchers actually have a name for that. Racial gaslighting. That's when if you call out something racial, you get labeled as irrational or too much, instead of people looking at their behavior. So before I even opened my mouth on this, I said to myself, let me go buy the thickest bulletproof vest and a helmet, because I already know what's coming. Some of you are gonna get it. Some of you are gonna feel this in your bones. And some of you are gonna be in those comments like, here she go again, reading too deep, making everything about race. It was just a joke. But here's the truth. When a community has had its body owned, its sexuality weaponized, its women stereotyped as always available and always strong enough to take it, there is no such thing as just a joke. That doesn't mean every person who jokes is a monster. It means the joke is sitting on top of something older, something heavier, something you might not have had to live through, but other people did. So if you see me laughing, understand this. Yes, I know how to laugh. I know how to tell a story and make it funny, but I also know how to see. I see the history behind the joke. I see the stereotype behind the comment. I see the way. Background matters.
Laughter can be a powerful tool for storytelling, but it also carries a weight of history and experience. When I share a laugh, I'm not just indulging in humor, I'm reflecting on the stories that shape our lives. Behind every joke, there's a context that deserves recognition. Stereotypes and societal norms often influence our understanding of humor, and it's vital to see these underlying issues. I've witnessed the complexities of life in various settings, from shelters to hospitals, and these experiences inform my perspective. My reality as a Black individual is filled with both joy and pain, and that duality shapes my understanding of the world. It's important to acknowledge that personal experiences are valid and should not be dismissed. My laughter and pain coexist, and my awareness of societal issues is rooted in the life I've lived. In the end, we may not always agree, but understanding the depth of each other's experiences fosters empathy and connection. Let's engage with laughter while also recognizing the stories that come with it.